We believe that more is more and more is good. And that's the kind of mindset that we take to like self-care as well, that I have to do more. The mindset behind it is not coming from a place of groundedness. It's coming from a place of kind of like, in order for me to feel good, I need to do more, like that mindset. And that's like the foundational framework of toxic productivity.
Now that we're flooded with so many different modalities and so many tools in the self-development world, now we have different types of workshops and programs. It always feels like this eternal quest to just keep improving ourselves, and it feels like we're never enough. I think it's important to be mindful of that we can overdo it, and there has to reach a point where it's like, no, it's getting too much now.
Our unresolved emotions drive all of our behaviors without us knowing it. Unless you resolve these difficult emotions like shame, perfectionism, fear, you let them be in the driver's seat. And so you're not in the driver's seat of your life. We can actually change our behaviors, and we can create habits, and we can create systems to kind of improve our quality of life. But if we have that layer of unresolved emotion at the bottom, it will eventually find its way through and break through your habits. Comparison is a really big pillar of toxic productivity. When we compare ourselves to other people, what it does is it moves us further and further away from our values. The more distance you become from your values, the less happy you are.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dreamcatcher podcast, a place where your dreams can find a voice. I'm your host, Celine Chenoy. Thank you to all of you who return every week to tune in to become a better version of yourself. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already, and rate our show if you enjoyed this episode. Have you ever wondered why slowing down feels uncomfortable, even when you know you really need it? Or why taking a break can spark guilt instead of relief? In her new book, Toxic Productivity, Israa Nasir helps us understand the hidden beliefs behind this pressure and offers a gentle and more sustainable way to live and work. She's here to tell us more. Israa is a psychotherapist, mental health educator, and the founder of WellGuide. Her work bridges psychology, emotional well-being, and modern life, helping people build healthier inner narratives and stronger emotional resilience. Israa has been featured in NBC, Vogue, HuffPost, Teen Vogue, and other major publications. She has been invited to speak at Mental Health America, Google, Meta, and Yale, among other corporations, nonprofits, and educational institutions. In today's conversation, we explore where toxic productivity comes from, how it silently shapes our self-worth, and what it looks like to redefine ambition without sacrificing our mental health. We also discuss practical ways to slow down, reconnect with yourself, and build a relationship with productivity that feels grounded rather than draining. Let's dive in. Hi, Israa. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's so great to have you here. I just finished reading your new book titled Toxic Productivity, and it really speaks to the struggle that we're facing in the modern world. And I think it's very timely because, as I said, it is so prevalent in our society, and it really needs to be addressed aggressively because it's impacting so many people on so many levels. And I'm excited to dive into so many facets of it, like how this mindset forms, why it's hard to break, and healthier ways to relate to ambition and drive. And I think it's going to be a very interesting and insightful discussion.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I think, you kind of hit it right off right off the bat that it actually affects so many different parts of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it affecting so many people, it's also affecting almost every aspect of our life. A lot of times we think about productivity and we think about work, right? Ambition.
Mm-hmm.
But toxic productivity actually seeps into your romantic relationships, your friendships, your relationships, with family, even how you take care of yourself. Like I
Mm-hmm.
see it seep into people's self-care habits, and the overall effect is harmful.
Yeah, that was quite interesting to me because I have never heard about how toxic productivity can actually infect that aspect of our life where, we're overdoing on the self-development, self-care aspect of our lives because I always thought that that would be beneficial to us and actually help us manage the toxic productivity. So it'd be interesting to hear your take on that.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. Like we believe that more is more and more is good no matter what. And that's the kind of mindset that we take to like self-care as well, that I have to do more, I have to be more, I have to do more habits and more different types of journaling. And I need to wake up an hour before and I need to like measure everything I eat. And, I need to time it. And like all of it is being done with the purpose of caring for yourself. But the intention and the mindset behind it is not coming from a place of groundedness. It's coming from a place of kind of like, in order for me to feel good, I need to do more, like that mindset. And that's like the foundational framework of toxic productivity, right? It's, I don't feel good enough about myself. How can I feel good about myself? I'm going to do more. I'm going to get the next thing. I'm going to do the next check mark. And it really just kind of takes over and we don't even realize it. It's like this invisible floating energy around us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you're right, especially now that we're flooded with so many different modalities and so many tools in the self-development world. Now we have podcasts, we have, of course, books are still there, different types of workshops and programs. It always feels like this eternal quest to just keep improving ourselves. And it feels like we're never enough.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to be mindful of that, that we can overdo it. And there has to reach a point where it's like, no, it's getting too much now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you make a very salient point there.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I do want to dig into your story. I would love to know what aspect of your background uh, influenced you to write this book, and how your cultural background specifically shaped your view on success.
Yeah. So the reason for this book coming to be is kind of like this interesting merger between me being a therapist and me experiencing toxic productivity and not knowing what it is, right? Like many people, especially children of immigrants, I'm a high achiever, doing all the things, feeling the pressure of constantly achieving something, whether it's academics, the kind of daughter I am, the kind of sister I am. That pressure in my 20s was very high, both from my parents, but also from me internally. And when I started like exploring why I wasn't actually feeling happy about the things that I was getting, that's when I started, like, that's when like my therapist hat kicked in. And I was like, okay, if you don't have depression and you don't have any other like mental health condition, what's really going on? Why is it that you feel so disconnected from your life, even though you're doing all the right things? You're checking off the boxes, you're doing the things that's expected of you. And people around you say, wow, your life is so like good. You must feel so happy. But inside you don't feel that. Right. So I started kind of exploring that for myself. And I turned to the research. So I started reading research articles about like human behavior, motivation theories, like what really drives us, does purpose even exist? Like those type of really big questions. And
Hmm.
what that led me to was that our unresolved emotions drive all of our behaviors without us knowing it. And unless you resolve these difficult emotions like shame, guilt, perfectionism, fear, you let them be in the driver's seat. And so you're not in the driver's seat of your life. But the bookstores and the bookshelves were not really talking about emotions when it came to this. They were talking about habits. They were talking about systems. They were talking about behavior change. And I think that's the gap that I wanted to fill, is that we can actually change our behaviors and we can create habits and we can create systems to kind of improve our quality of life. But if we have that layer of unresolved emotion at the bottom, it will eventually find its way through and break through your habits. And that's why people, especially around the new year, struggle to maintain the habit that they're building because there's an unresolved emotion underneath that's driving. And so the book really takes a deeper look at the unresolved emotions and then gives habits, because I think habits alone are good when you're feeling good. But the moment you start feeling bad, the moment you're stressed, the moment you're triggered, the unresolved emotion takes over. And all the habits you build just kind of fall to the side. And
Mm.
that's what drove me to writing this book. I originally wrote an essay and I put it on my blog. And then the essay eventually became this like larger book.
How do we know that we are being driven by these unresolved emotions as opposed to just a healthy sense of ambition?
You might feel a lot of resentment. So if you're constantly fighting resentment in your day to day for the things that are supposed to give you joy or the things that you believe are your purpose, that means something is off balance. So that's one really big red flag. Another is when your achievement and your outcomes are consistently coming at the expense of your wellness, foundational wellness, sleep, eating, movement, connection, right? These
Hmm.
are the four foundational pieces of being a human being. And if you consistently ignore this stuff because you need to pursue something, you need to achieve something, house needs to look perfect or whatever, that's a really big red flag that you're being driven by toxic productivity. Another really big one is healthy ambition makes space for celebration. You know,
Mm.
when you're coming to your ambition from a place of groundedness and feeling value aligned, when you achieve something, you pause and you celebrate it. You name it, you identify the hard work you had to do to get there. But when you're in a toxic productivity mindset, you achieve something and you're like, okay, what's next? Like, this is not good enough. Because what we're chasing is not the actual outcome. We're chasing the feeling of being good enough. So when you
Mm.
get the
Yeah.
outcome, it still doesn't come because it's external to you.
Yeah.
And so I think these are some flags that people can look out for.
Yeah. So it sounds like you are sourcing your sense of worth from, from achieving a certain title or reaching a certain level of success or checking some boxes or kind of trying to reach people's idea of what appears to be like you've made it in life. And of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
we know that is a constant moving target that can never be reached.
Yeah. Comparison is a really big pillar of toxic productivity.
Mm.
And when we compare ourselves to other people, what it does is it moves us further and further away from our values. And the
Mm.
more distance you become from your values, the less happy you are, right? The more resentful you feel, the less fulfilled you are, the less satisfied you are. You're questioning, like, is this good? Is this good? Is this good? Because you're not aligned with your values. And so I would really say that when we compare ourselves to other people, it it is one of the strongest ways of losing connection to yourself.
Yeah. And I think that is so prevalent now in world of Instagram and TikTok culture.
Totally.
Younger generations, I'm sure you've come across it in your work and your talks. Like, what have you seen when you're on the ground?
Yeah, comparison is definitely very heightened right now because we just have so much more data points to compare ourselves to.
Yeah.
So, like a neurological level, comparing yourself is something that is hard coded into our brain,
Hmm.
right? So if you think about when we were, uh, in the hunter-gatherer brain, like that time, comparing yourself meant being safe. So if you're like a small tribe of people in the wilderness, if everyone is the same, then you are more likely to be protected. If you stand out and you're different and you're not like everybody else, you're more likely to get caught, right? And
Yep.
so comparison is and caught by like a wild animal. Um, So comparison is like actually hard coded in our brain. So we cannot stop it. And I think that's the, people are like, oh, you got to stop comparing. We cannot stop it. What's happened though is over time, the number of data points that we have that we're comparing ourselves to has increased exponentially. If you live in an apartment building, like I live in an apartment building, it's like 45 floors. Like I can compare myself to over 1,000 people every time I step out of my apartment. Whereas before, you only knew what was going on with the people who lived in your neighborhood. And it was like maybe 40, 50 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can compare myself to somebody in New Zealand, which is on the other side of the world. Like I can wake up in the morning and I can compare myself to somebody living in Japan. And so it's become so accessible. And so our brain actually cannot process that much information. And so it just defaults to taking the easiest thing that it can take out of it, which is you need to do this. It's like the easiest thing the brain can take out of it. So it's a very natural mechanism. What we have to do is we have to learn to limit the number of data points we're getting. So that's what I see on the ground is like, we're scrolling all day, we're reading everything. Like we have to limit how much we do that. So we limit the data points that are going into comparison. And we create a life that is so much more fuller
Mm-hmm.
offline that can really help us stay grounded in our values.
And what if we tend to tie our sense of worth to our output? Because that is also running the show right now in a world where everyone's just go, go, go. How can we begin to rewrite our sense of self beyond our achievements and titles and probably tie it to something that is personally defined, like our values?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think the first step to doing something like that is freeing up some time in your calendar. When we are super busy, back to back, slammed with like evening events and work stuff, we actually don't have time to do this introspection. We don't have time to analyze whether we're getting our self-worth externally or internally, right? And from like a scientific perspective, the research shows that human beings need both. We
Mhm.
need a certain level of external validation, right, for our self-worth. And we need a set of validation that's internal.
Yep.
What's happened is we're getting all of it from the outside. And so if we don't have the time that's free in our calendar, we actually cannot do the work. So the first step that I always encourage people to do is see where you can actually create more time in your calendar. Can you undercommit? Can you take one commitment off? Can you limit the things you say yes to? That will allow you to actually sit with yourself and then do the exploration of what are the things that actually matter to me. And one of the things I talk in my book is this value alignment exercise, where you can go through your value system and identify what are the two values that are actually really important to me in the season. And once you can actually understand that, then every decision you make has to be made through the lens of that value. Like, is saying yes going to bring me closer to this value of like community or connection or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Um, that is what allows us to build internal self.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important to have a strong sense of identity and knowing what you stand for because that is what can help you push back against other people's values and being in a place where it's very easy to kind of absorb what is happening around you. I mean, based on my personal experience, I have been in places where people are very superficial and
Mm,
it was all about money and status. And
mm,
it was, if I was not cognizant of the kind of people who are around me, I knew it was something that would change me on a fundamental level. And having done the values exercises, doing a lot of them during my coaching certification, I was able to resist that. And yeah, I have seen it firsthand how important it is to not get sucked into that.
mhm.
And just know what you're about and live a life that is in alignment with what matters most to you.
Yeah. And I think, like we are not taught this. It's unfortunate that we all have to kind of like go through life and fall and try to understand and then pick ourselves up and like learn the values. And I see nowadays, like I do see schools, teaching children and like millennial parents are like really doing the hard work of like teaching their young kids this stuff.
Hmm.
But I think like the generations before, like, in my generation, like we weren't really taught this explicitly. We were
Hmm.
told to be kind and we were told to be polite and we were
Are you a
told all.
millennial?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we were kind of like raised in this like utopia of a meritocracy. Like if you're good things will happen. But
Yeah.
this idea of like, especially as like a South Asian child of immigrants, like comparison is so rooted in our culture.
Oh yeah, it
What
is.
are people going to say? What are people going to say? That immediately tells you that you have to make decisions that make other people happy.
Yeah.
So it disconnects you from your values. And so
Hmm.
I think it's like so great for me to see that all of us are kind of like looking inside and trying to make the changes. And then I see my friends who have children, like they're passing it on, which makes me very happy.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And I've noticed that another thing people struggle with is slowing down and just kind of being more mindful of the pace that they're running their life at. I mean, it can be hard for, overachievers to actually stop, take the time to introspect, and to also incorporate rest so that, they can be more efficient and show up in a stronger and better way. So I love for us to dig into the importance of slowing down and rest when it comes to becoming more productive in our life.
Yeah, I like to remind people that rest is a requirement. It's not a reward. The way we think about rest and toxic productivity is that once I get this achievement, then I've earned my rest. And that's why so many people feel guilty when they're just hanging out on the couch, or they feel shame when they're like
Mhm.
sleeping in on a
Guilty as
weekend.
charged.
Yeah, yeah,
In
me
there.
too.
Yeah, yeah,
It's so hard. It's
yeah.
so hard because like you grow up with this mindset of like always have to be doing something, and then the culture tells you that,
Mm,
and then the broader like broader culture, not just South Asian culture, tells you that. And so I like to remind people that rest is a requirement. It's not a reward, because if you don't rest, you're ultimately not going to be productive. And so you have to bake rest into your day to day. Another really big myth we have about rest is that it needs to be big and long. In order for me to get rest, I have to sleep 9 hours, or I need 1 hour of working out, or I have to meditate for 40 minutes. True rest is actually micro rest that is baked in throughout your day. And that's what keeps your nervous system regulated. Instead of waiting for big chunks of rest, try to just kind of infuse it throughout your day. Do like a 15-minute tea break every day at 12:30 after lunch, right? Do a 2-minute meditation in between calls. So do like the 5-minute buffer between calls. And in that 5 minutes, do 2 minutes of meditation, or 2 minutes of stretching, or 2 minutes of just like staring off into space, right? And so it's like we have to find micro rest throughout our days that can help us become more comfortable with rest.
mm,
Because if you're someone who's not comfortable with rest, which honestly is almost all of us, 1 hour is too overwhelming
yeah.
and the body doesn't feel safe. And
Hmm.
so sometimes rest is not even about a time management issue. It's about like not feeling safe in your body.
Hmm.
You have time, you're sitting on the couch, suddenly your body feels activated. You're like, oh, I gotta do something. I feel restless. I need to move. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. There's a lack of safety in your body, and there's like a nervous system dysregulation. So the regular rest checkpoints give you like a regulated nervous system, and that eventually helps you build more rest into your day and your
Mm,
life. And the
yeah.
last thing I'll say about this is research shows that we have 7 different types of rest that we can access.
Yeah.
It's not just sleep. It's not just lying on the couch, right? There's social rest, there's emotional rest, there's physical, obviously, rest, there's creative rest. Creative rest is very underrated. As kids, we spend hours doodling and coloring and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Hmm.
We get older and we stop doing that because we
Yeah, we
think it's
do.
like a children's thing, but it's
Yeah.
actually not. It's very beneficial to our brain.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And the idea of micro rests, it feels so doable. It's not as intimidating as taking a whole hour off or even a whole day off. And that's a brilliant suggestion, I think. And I think also people have to be aware of how much rest they need because we all have different nervous systems. We're either introverts, more introverted or more extroverted. So I think having that self-awareness of how much we need can help us, decide how much downtime we need. Because I know there are some people who don't need as much as I do,
Mhm.
and the level of stimulation that we can take also. Um, so,
Sure, yeah. There's a gender difference as well, right?
is it? Okay.
Like research is showing that, the biological male body
Mm,
needs a different amount of sleep versus a biological female body,
yeah.
just in terms of like the hormonal regulation, right? So that's one
Mm,
thing. Then if you have on top of that, if you have a chronic illness, if you have like an autoimmune condition, you need
mm,
rest a different way. So
yeah.
you're so right that rest doesn't look the same for everyone, even in its micro ways.
Yeah.
Really is about what your body needs and what
Yeah.
your spirit needs, right? Emotionally as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes people need to be with friends to feel rested, and sometimes people need to be alone to feel rested. And you
That's
just really
true.
know that about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're an empath, if you're a highly sensitive person, knowing the kind of environments that sort of drain you, I think that's also uh,
Huge.
huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the upcoming launch of my new book titled The Nomadic Soul, a seeker's guide to finding a sense of self and belonging in the modern world, which highlights a profound yet often unexplored part of your identity that holds the key to everything from answering your biggest questions to finding deeper meaning and joy in everyday life. Visit thenomadicsoulbook.com to learn more, download a free chapter, or to buy a copy. I think it's also important to be aware of the kind of people you surround yourself with. I mean, are they nurturing? Are they helping you become the best version of yourself? Are they just kind of chipping away at your energy? And I think that's why knowing how to set boundaries is really important, both in your personal life and in your professional life. So let's talk about healthy boundary setting. And I know that's a pivotal piece of your book. What does healthy boundary setting look like?
A healthy boundary setting, first of all, it's really important to remember that boundaries are not walls that we build to isolate ourselves. So that's something that I hear a lot, especially right now, is like, oh, I was healing, so I isolated myself, right? Like, and I think that's not the purpose of boundaries. The purpose of a healthy boundary is to communicate to another person how you exist in relationships. It's the guidelines of being in relationship with you, right? It's like the guidelines of what you're able to tolerate, what you're not able to tolerate, what your non negotiables are, and the limits to your own behavior. So a healthy boundary is not telling somebody that they can't do X or they shouldn't do Y. It's saying, if you do this, this is how I'm going to react to it. And so it's a limitation on your own behavior. So a really good example that I use is if you have a friend who tends to go out on the weekends and like drunk dial you, for example, right? And they're calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning and it just disrupts your sleep, something you are an early person who goes to sleep early. A unhealthy boundary would be stop calling me after 10 o'clock, right? A healthy boundary would be I'm not going to pick up after 10 p.m. And then if you continue to call me, I will put you on silent block. Like that's what I'm going to do.
Hmm.
You can do what you want, but my line is this, and this is where I'm going to operate. And then you can offer an alternative. Like, I would love to hear about your night. We'll catch up in the morning. I'll follow up with you Sunday mornings to hear about your weekend. Like, these are ways we can actually stay in relationship with someone while having boundaries.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the second important thing about boundaries is that they're not the same for everyone. The way you set a boundary with a stranger or like a random person who is making like comments about your life or your body or whatever, that happens a lot. The way you set a boundary with that person is very different than the way you set a boundary with your friend or your parent. And the way you set a boundary with somebody who is like in an abusive dynamic with you is very
Oh,
different.
very different. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I always like to say that because, I say that, oh, we should offer alternatives when we offer boundaries.
Yeah.
And people are always like, well, what if, in an abusive relationship, you don't offer alternatives? It's like,
Yeah. This,
no is the full sentence.
yeah.
But if you want to have a relationship with the person, you want to continue to deepen that bond. This formula is thank them for whatever it is that they've asked for or what they're doing. Give them the decline with an alternative. And then that's like the formula for boundary setting.
Yeah. So being diplomatic about it and, doing it with a sense of compassion and
Yes.
empathy.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I would definitely say that over diplomatic because it's like you are coming from a place of compassion. You want them to know that you care about them, but
Yeah.
you just can't do this, right?
Yeah.
And like around the holiday time, especially, like people feel very burnt out with like holiday invites and like
Absolutely.
family.
Yeah. With family and,
Yeah, like, and so a really good way to set boundaries is to have time limits. So,
mm,
if you're invited somewhere, you can say, thanks for inviting me. I'd love to come. What can I bring? I'm going to be
mm,
leaving at 30, right?
okay.
And like kind of like sticking to that yourself as well is like a time and energy boundary.
Right. Yeah. What's one boundary that you set in your life that really changed things for you? Like, what do you feel? A boundary that was really impactful in your life?
I set a boundary with myself that really changed a lot of things for me, which was that I would only go out maximum 3 times a week. That was like a time energy boundary I had to set with myself because I live in New York City. There's something happening every single day. It's like
Yeah.
4 things are happening. And so boundaries are something we set with ourselves too, right? It's not just about other people.
Mm,
And there was a time where I was just going out all the time, like 7 nights a week. Weekends, my husband and I would be out for like 10 hours. But
when
it was
you
like,
say
you can't,
going out, is that like social activities
yeah.
or yeah?
So shows, musicals,
Okay.
art gallery openings, parties, social
Oh yeah.
gatherings,
Yeah.
concerts, like just you name it. Like, and I'm doing it, right?
Yeah.
And you can't be healthy like that. You're not
Yes.
eating well, you're not sleeping well, like you're not resting, you don't have time to work out because your
Yes.
calendar is so slammed.
Right.
Um, so I made that boundary with myself and I had to say no to things. And it really forced me to prioritize what is the thing that truly matters. If I can only go out 3 times this week, what's the thing I'm going to say yes to? And so that really changed a lot for me, like my health, my relationships, like my sense of presence, just all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think that's actually part of our personal evolution as we grow older. We have to whittle down the activities that we have on our calendar because we have more important stuff to do, you know? Especially
Yeah.
if you're mission oriented like you are and like I am. Like we can't just fritter
Yeah.
away our time. So,
Yeah.
and our
even
energy.
for even for simple things like nutritious meals, like nutritious
Yeah.
meals are such a cornerstone of your health.
Yeah.
And if you're out all the time, you don't have time to cook. You don't have time
That's
to buy.
right.
So you're just eating whatever, you're ordering out. And that was like a big part of it. And
Yeah.
not only is it like bad for your health, it's like bad for your bank because like you're spending so much money.
So much money. Yeah.
But
Yeah. And
just overall, it's
restaurants can
like,
be expensive out there in New
yeah,
York. I remember.
yeah. Yeah, and it's not nutritious. So it's like a double whammy. It's one thing to pay money and
Yes.
get really nutritious food. And so like that changed for me. So now like Mondays, I never go out unless it's like so extreme. Like it's like someone's book launch party that
Mm,
you don't want to miss.
yeah.
My meals on Monday night, like like I catch up prep for the week and that makes me feel so grounded. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I feel good about this upcoming week. And I
Hmm.
didn't used to have that before, like in my early 30s.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That it's important to get to that point where you know what you need to be your best self. Um,
Mhm.
I do want to talk about something that I thought people should be aware of, and that is learning how to manage our anxiety and our triggers. And you say that one of the best ways to do that is through the process of reparenting and knowing what it is we need to shift in ourselves. So tell us about reparenting and what that entails.
Yeah. So reparenting is this idea of recognizing how you actually get your needs met. So, when you're younger and you're like literally like when you're 1, 2 years old, like when you're a baby, you learn how to ask for your needs. Like babies are very good at that. Like if you try to hold a baby and they don't want it, they'll just push you away, literally, right? Like we are born with a lot of boundaries that we know are good for us. And we know how to like ask for what we want. Like we're hungry, we need a diaper change, or we're sleepy. And so what we learn very quickly from our parents is how our needs will be met. And so if your parents they might be well-meaning people, but maybe they were a little angry, maybe they were temperamental, maybe they were inconsistent, maybe your parent was like experiencing postpartum depression and wasn't really able to meet your needs in that moment. There's so many reasons this can happen, but we can learn that our needs are not important very early on. And we learn to mask it, or we learn to people please. Like children as young as 2, 3 years old can do this really well. Like they
Hmm.
can people please and mask their needs to
Yeah,
make their caregiver happy, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And so reparenting is going through that journey again as an adult to
Hmm.
recognize, how do I actually ask for what I need? And is it healthy the way I do it? Right. And it's not about blaming your parents. It's not about looking back and being angry at them, because that's just weight that you are carrying. I mean, you need to resolve that emotion, and that's different. But the process of reparenting is essentially learning how to meet your needs and learning how to ask for them. So there's two parts to meeting a need. One is like, how do I do it for myself? And then how do I ask for other people to do it for me? And we need to have a lot of clarity about how we actually communicate a need to our partners and our friends, and how we receive it. Because sometimes people will say, I need help, I need help. But then somebody gives them help, they reject it. Right. I mean, we've all seen that happen in life.
Yeah.
Or we meet people and they'll never ask for help and they'll struggle, but then they'll be mad at you for not helping them.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Because they want you to know what's on their mind.
Mind
Right.
read. Yeah.
Mind read. And these are all things we learn at an early age. So
Yeah.
reparenting is actually consciously becoming aware of what your needs are, how you meet them, how you communicate them to other people, and how you ask and receive help. And
Oh,
so it's like a journey we go on. And it's not just about like on Instagram, you see people talk about all these other ways of like, like buy yourself flowers every week and things like that, which I do, by the way. So I'm a big fan of that. But
mhm.
that's like what goes on top of it. The foundation is that conscious awareness of, how do I communicate and meet my needs? Once you can do that, then you build the inner child healing of like joy and connection and all those other things that you see.
Oh, that is so important, so key, because just imagine how much happier people would be if they took accountability and responsibility for meeting their needs, because if we are
Yeah.
relying on other people, we're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, and there is a certain level of needs that we need other people to fulfill for us,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is a certain set of needs that we must fulfill for ourselves.
Yeah.
And the issues happen when we expect other people to fulfill the needs that we should be filling for
Yeah,
ourselves.
and that happens in relationships a lot, right? Especially intimate relationships. And they just get resentful and they're like, oh, you're not right for me. You're not making me happy, when it's like, you got to do some work yourself. You can't rely
Exactly.
on them completely. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. And what is the fastest way for someone to find out what those needs are and how they need to reparent themselves? Are there any tools or practices that you recommend?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, there's never a fast way to healing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And it's a journey that we kind of all go on over time, because you're trying to unlearn a lot of complex things that have set over a long period of time, right? Like, if you're 30 years old, then you have 30 years worth of stuff to kind of unravel. So, the first thing I always say is like, make sure that you're gentle with yourself as you're going through it. It's not a race that we're not trying to get healed in the next 6 months. Like, that's just not a healthy way to approach it. It's a constant process of like unlearning and healing and growing. But the first thing that can be very helpful is to actually become aware of your patterns. You can't change something if you don't know it, right? And so journaling is a good way to do it. If you just journal for 10 minutes a day, and then at the end of like a month, go back and read it, you'll start to see patterns about how you behave, what other people think, what your thoughts are. Another way to identify patterns is to go to therapy and help a therapist help you with that. Another way is to essentially, like, you can also audio journal. Some people don't like writing. So with some clients, I've just been like, put it in a voice note and then go back and listen to it or pull some themes. Or, if you have a really good friend that you trust, you can actually ask them as well. You can say, hey, like, the last 3 relationships, what's like something common that you saw me do that you wish I had done differently?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're looking for patterns. Once you can identify a pattern, and that itself can take like 2 months, 3 months of like journaling, introspection, making some time in your calendar, talking to your friends, going to therapy. Once you understand what your childhood wound is, because it's going to be different for everyone, then you can reparent it, right? Some people have like the abandonment wound. Some people have a rejection wound. Some people have like a neglect wound, right? Like, so depending on what you identify, then you can go and find ways to kind of heal that for yourself.
Mm. Those are some
Yeah.
great suggestions. And lately, I've been finding Chat GPT very helpful.
You know what? You are not alone.
Yeah.
I think like
I
millions of ChatGPT users use it for mental health. I do find a little bit of like hesitation around that as a
do
therapist.
you?
I would say, yeah, because ChatGPT is like a contained system, right? Like we feel like it's like this like never-ending reservoir of knowledge,
Yeah.
but it pulls from a very finite set of resources that exist on the
Mm.
internet, right? It also doesn't have the nuance of like human emotions yet. I'm sure they're going to build it in, like, but it doesn't yet. And so the way I ask people to use ChatGPT for emotional growth, because it is a helpful tool,
It really
is
is. Yeah.
not to ask it questions, but ask it to help you identify themes. So some things that I have seen people do is they'll take their journal entry from the last 10 days or 15 days, and they'll put all of it in ChatGPT, and then they'll ask, like, what are some themes you see in this?
Oh, I
What's the
see.
pattern you see in this?
Okay.
Instead of asking questions around what is like the diagnosis or what should I do or like what would you label this?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of that stuff, ask for themes. And then ask, like, if I had a therapist, what are some questions you would ask me to ask my therapist? That's a great reflection that you can get out of your journals, right? So instead of getting it to look at the whole world and give you information, you can
Mm-hmm.
actually just give it your world and ask for patterns and questions that you can then take to like a mental health professional if you're, working through some stuff. If you're actually someone who is struggling with a mental health condition like anxiety, depression, OCD, anything that you are getting like mental health support for, I would highly discourage the use of ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're curious about yourself, if you're like, why am I like this in relationships
Yeah.
or whatever, like if you're looking for patterns, it's
Yeah.
a really good tool
And
for that.
languaging too.
Yes, what a great point.
Yeah, the
Giving language.
frames,
Yeah.
languaging, it just
Mhm.
really
Yeah.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like a mixed use tool.
Yeah. Yeah. Use it with caution. And
Exactly.
there are caveats that you need to be aware of. But yeah, just another tool to add to our box. But
Yeah.
Isra, thank you so much for sharing your compassionate and clarifying insights today. Your work reminds us that slowing down isn't failure, but it is actually a sign of wisdom. And I hope listeners are feeling freer to question, the way they drive their life and what is really inspiring them and the choices that they make today. So thank you. Thank you for making us more aware.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And I just want to let all our listeners and viewers know that if this conversation resonated with you, be sure to pick up a copy of Isra's new book, Toxic Productivity: Reclaim Your Time and Emotional Energy in a World That Always Demands More. And you'll find it wherever books are sold and on her website, israhnasir.com. The link is in the description.